y'all. Welcome back. So I've been pushing this off because I've been trying to figure out how I was gonna review this, because this is like nice and refreshing to see. It's a rom com that stars some African Americans. I feel like and people are gonna say like there's a bunch of them, but those rom coms back then weren't really rom coms. They were like romance with a bunch of exploitation and some other bullshit to them. This was like a genuine rom com where it's like some goofy stuff happens. They actually like each other, some other unfortunate circumstances, but they actually, end up being together. I like this. I don't think I've seen a black rom com like this in a relatively long time. And also it's just nice to see it's nice to see Halle Bailey on screen. Let's be honest. Halle Bailey is beautiful down to the ankles, bro. And then you got the guy, Reggie Page, who I believe was in Black Bag last year, and he was pretty cool. And I was like, okay, cool. So he can do kind of funny. Like he wasn't like funny, but he was more like the stoic, sexy guy, and she's more the funny one. But Halle Bailey was actually real good at being kind of funny. Now, I will say I love the fact that they had this set in Tuscany. For some reason, it just felt so good seeing it in a different environment than like the hood or like another part of Chicago or some other shit. Like it was in a whole nother country where it was allowed to bloom differently. Now that doesn't say it can't bloom good in America, but it was nice to see that the movie was able to stand on its own 2 feet, but also being in the country. I love the little like Italian language that Halle Bailey spoke with the food, and I love the fact that she was like a culinary student, like I was back in my early 20s and like my teens. I went to culinary school after high school and stuff like that, and it was just really cool to see that. I was like, oh, I can kind of resonate with this. I didn't expect to see that part going into it because that wasn't in the trailers, and the little backstory about her mom is actually really sad and kind of makes you feel for it a little bit in a way, and I really like that. They actually did a good way of making their romance feel believable, and I love the fact that we got that. Now, I don't think this needs a sequel. It really doesn't need a sequel. I hope Hollywood doesn't make a sequel. I'm kind of over them making sequels all the damn time. But I do love the fact that we got a black rom com in 2025. Oh my God. 2026. Sorry, y'all. And we just get to see this blossom. Like this is a good step in the right direction. Now, I do think the best part about it is that they actually filmed the movie in Tuscany. That's why it's so visually astounding and so beautiful to look at, because the architecture over there is just A1 legendary. It's got this ancient style and it just looks so good. And the thing is, with Halle Bailey's character, her name is Anna, short for Brienne, and she is a house sitter. A year after her mom died, because she had to drop out of culinary school right before she graduated to take care of her mother. And she's just jumping back and forth from house sitting to house sitting. She meets this guy from Italy who's like in real estate, traveling on business. He seems like a really great guy, which is an annoying sitcom and an annoying rom com trope. But he seems like a really solid guy. He's successful, got his shit together. Da da da. They end up, kind of hitting it off. He tells her about his villa over at in Tuscany that he just hasn't used because he didn't get married and have kids. And her dumbass bright idea is to fly over there and stay there while he's not there. And it's so dumb, but it's hilarious. And she's in there, and literally the next day after she gets there, pretty much all hell breaks loose. Then she has to lie about being engaged to him, and the family's freaking out. They fall in love with her, and I'm like, bro, that is so ridiculous, bro. Like, but it's like really funny. Then she meets him. He's kind of a standoffish, kind of a jerk in her eyes, obviously, kind of thing. But they immediately hit it off, start to understand each other a little bit more. The more you see them together, the more you're like, okay, this is actually pretty cool. It's just it's just a beautiful movie, honestly. I don't know about that. It's beautiful looking. The all the way down to the shots, to the real life setting in Tuscany, to the vineyard shots. The shot of them running through the vineyard is nice. You know what I mean? The jokes are pretty funny. Now I will say the first little bit of the movie I was kind of like, all right. I mean, I guess kind of sort of. It's not really grasping me, and then it did started to catch me, and I did eventually kind of latch on, and I was like, you know what, I like this actually. Like by the time I left the theater, I felt actually pretty good. Like I was actually kind of happy, and I was like, you know what, I like that feeling. That's a good feeling coming out the theater. Now, going into that part, I will say the reveal that the guy Mateo's secretly kind of a jackass is a little bit on the like the decision spectrum. Like he leaves his family because they tried to put pressure on him that he didn't want, and them saying like that kind of hurt the family. But it's like, but it is his life at the end of the day, right? I mean, he became a successful real estate investor, I think, or something like that, and he's doing this, that, and the third, and it is what it is. But then you find out when he gets around his family, he's kind of a jackass, and but then he's not that bad of a guy at the end when all the reveals come out. It's just interesting. I do think people seeing this, I can understand people being turned off by it because rom coms in theaters in 2026. Let's be honest, rom coms have been reduced to direct streaming only. We're not going to put them in theaters. But then Anyone But You came out and it did insanely well. And I know a lot of actors were really happy about that. And I was like, well, cool. So actors miss rom coms being in theaters. So why don't the people show that by going to see them? And You, Me, and Tuscany isn't doing nearly as crazy numbers as Anyone But You. But let's be honest, Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell are bigger stars than Holly Bailey and Reggie Page. You know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure I'm saying his name wrong, but they're not as big as stars as the other two, right? And that's unfortunate because I think Yumi and Tuscany is a better film. Like if we're gonna keep it a buck, it's a better film. Um, I think the aspect for me was that they were allowed to like each other without any toxic shit. Like I was so it was not toxic in any way. There was no abusive relationships. There was no like they were allowed to just like each other healthily and have a healthy end. That part I like the most. She didn't cheat on anybody. He didn't cheat on anybody. It wasn't like a dirty secret romance. They were able to meet each other, understand each other, and end up liking each other. And I think that's way it's so refreshing for me as a black man to see a black movie like this and no toxic shit goes down. So that made me more happy, and I think that's why I'm more willing to give this a passable grade because I am kind of tired of the black struggle trope being forced down my throat in movies. Even when it's good, I do still love it, but sometimes it gets a little tiring, and you just want to see black people happy. Like that's what I loved about Creed 3, which I'll do eventually. Don't worry, but that's a good thing. I think we need more of this. And the only thing that I thought was kind of weird was that the producer was saying that if Yumi and Tuscany succeeds, Hollywood will be more willing to make black rom coms. It shouldn't only fall on Yumi and Tuscany, but I kind of understand it because if Holly Bailey is Holly Bailey and the black community tends to love Holly Bailey and she can't get black people to see a rom com like this, who can? I kind of get it. It's a cheap film, and by today's standards, it's a cheap movie. You know what I mean? Like 18 million, $18 million budget. That's not too bad. And I think when they will kill you was like 7 million. So like these lower movies have a lower budget by today's standards, and I'm happy that that's the case. It's easier for them to break even, easier for kind of just to like do what they want with it. Now, if you mean Tuscany ends up making about like 25 to say 30 million, maybe plus that, I think they'll consider that a success since it doesn't cost as much. But I have no idea because I found out that whole 2.5 times its budget thing is a rule of thumb that doesn't really stand. Like movie people are like, that's not really how that works, like actual industry people. So now I'm kind of thinking like, well, then what does require it to be a success? Does it just need to double its budget? Does it just need to kind of like make more than like what qualifies it as a success? I think in certain aspects that does qualify, which is why I don't consider Fantastic Four a failure or you know what I mean. But Some people do. I don't consider Superman a failure by that logic, but it's hard to tell because they won't really tell you what really makes the movie successful. It's like, well, then tell us what does, you know? So apparently, Yumi and Tuscany might actually have a lot riding on it, even if there's a really good chance it might not even make 18 million. Now, if it does on like a kind of a sleeper hit kind of thing, then I'd be like, okay, cool. It's gonna have a little sleeper hit, and it'll be liked by at least the audience, not so much the critics, or not so much certain people who like to hate on things that don't star a certain demographic of people all the time. But other than that, it's a fairly fun film. It's a nice film. It's cute. It's the same old rom com trope, but it's nice to see it. And I think it was also nice to see that in theaters, and that's what matters. And I'm not saying you should go see the movie, but I'm saying if you are a rom com person and you enjoy those 2000s giddy rom coms, because I miss those, this is the movie for you. And I think that you would even come out saying you really like the film. It's pretty funny that we have two romance movies this year where they were both shot last year in Italy. Because you had Solo Mio and you have now Jumi and Tuscany. I was like, what is it about Italy this year that there are two prominent romance films that were shot in Italy this year that are both good? I do think Solo Mio's a better film. That's just if I'm coming off the cuff and being honest, but I did also enjoy Jumi and Tuscany. So, with that being said, I'm going to sign off. You guys can like, comment, subscribe for more, and I'll see y'all on the next one.